If you're interested in knowing what a day in the life of an academic who's also a YouTuber looks like, stay tuned, because this is going to be the topic of this video. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Angela Puca and welcome to my symposium. I'm a PhD and a university lecturer, and this is your online resource for the academic study of magic, paganism, shamanism, esotericism, and all things occult. Today's video is brought to you by Regulus, a kind friend of the symposium who commissioned this video. So today it will be more of a chatty video explaining to you a few things about my life as a university lecturer and as a person who's on YouTube, and I have a few things that Regulus asked me to address. The first thing is a day in the life, you know, what my day looks like, and that's a bit difficult because, as you may expect, my days change quite a bit, but there are certain things that recur and are kind of the same. So I tend to wake up very, very early, earlier than I'd like to admit. And the first thing that I do is I work on the most demanding task, which is either something related to writing, like for an academic publication, or writing a script for a video, or preparing a lecture that I'm going to deliver. Usually the most demanding and the most difficult task of the day is the one that I do straight out of bed. Straight out of bed, I have my my breakfast, and I do the first most important thing. And then after I do that, after I completed that task, I hit the gym because, yeah, you may not know, but I really like working out. And not only because it makes me feel good, but also because it helps me stay focused. So I find it quite helpful in my job as well. After that, I usually, if I have to give lectures at the university, I will do so. I will head to the university before the pandemic, and now I would be online. We use Microsoft Teams at my institution, as I'd say most universities in the UK. So either I go on campus to deliver the lecture in person, or I stay at home and I do so on Microsoft Teams. And then apart from that, I usually study a lot. So I guess that most of my days are not as exciting because I have to read a lot, as you may imagine, both for my job at the university and for you guys, for the symposium. And when I read, of course, I acquire the knowledge to prepare a script or prepare a lecture, or I do research for a peer-reviewed publication that I'm working on. Usually I'm always working on something of that sort, on some academic publication, because you know what they say, publish or perish. So you need to, in order for you to stay in the game, you need to be constantly producing academic knowledge and produce research. The kind of research that I do for my publications is very similar to the one that I do for my script. I don't know if you noticed that there is a difference between the YouTube videos that are based on my own publications and the videos that are not based on something that I have published. Usually when I try and avoid doing my own interpretation on primary sources, I mean texts that practitioners produce or use for their own practical magic purposes, usually I prefer to rely on peer-reviewed scholarship so that I can give you the most accurate knowledge I can based on what the academic methodology suggests. And otherwise, if I were to give you my own interpretation on one specific magical text, magical grimoire or another, that would have to go through peer review in order for my video to keep the kind of standard, methodological standard that I want them to have. And I know that is a bit limiting, and but for now I really want to keep the methodology for my videos quite strict, and I am aware that that can perhaps hinder the growth of my channel, but equally I can also see that it allows for my YouTube channel to keep the academic community engaged as well, and that is also important to me. Also, what kind of resources I use to do research for my videos? I'd say the same kind of resources that I use for my publications or for my own studies. So usually there are having an academic affiliation and working at a university allows me to access the university library and other universities' libraries. I can ask for books to be, to be lent to me. And also I can have access to digital database search engines that allow me to get access to peer-reviewed scholarship and to different research outputs. So I guess that is another reason as to why I think that having a university affiliation helps me in my work on this channel, because it allows me to access a wide variety of sources. A few search engines that you can also use in case you are interested are Google Scholar and JSTOR, and these are really free. On JSTOR you will only find academic articles and scholarship. On Google Scholar you may find both books that you can find. On Google Scholar you can find both books that are academic and books that are really not, but in that case it's really important for you to tell the difference between the two, and usually the difference is that the book is published by an academic publisher, and you can tell by looking up the publisher. So there are all the university presses are academic publishers, and that's very clear and you can immediately tell. But there are other very famous academic publishers that are, like, for instance, in the field of historicism, you have Brill. Brill is pretty famous. Then you have Bloomsbury, Equinox, Routledge, and other academic publishers. And you can tell whether they are academic publishers because when you look them up on their website, they will state the peer review process. And when something is peer reviewed, it means that it is academic. Because and you may ask, why is peer review so important? And that is because despite what we normally think in our society, and that is that if one person is reliable and has credentials, then what that person says is also reliable. That is actually a logical fallacy. And what I usually stress, even with my students, and hopefully that has come across in the past in my videos, is that you shouldn't really rely on the person, because that's not really how science works. It's not how research works. It's not, you don't get people peer reviewed. You get specific studies peer reviewed. That could be a total genius and produce one study that is extremely impactful, and that I could produce all rubbish afterwards for the rest of my life. It's not the fact that I may conduct a research that is particularly impactful and particularly accurate, and it doesn't really mean that every other research that I produce will live up to that standard or live up to an academic standard at all. So the reason why the peer review process is important is that it highlights the fact that science and academic research is based on the community, of scientists and the community of scholars. It's not based on the findings of one specific individual, one specific scientist, because as you know, as much as you can be a genius, you will only have limited resources, limited time, and a limited scale for your own study. So if your study doesn't prove to be at least in alignment with other studies in the same field that have been conducted with a similar methodology, if it is in complete contrast with everything that has been found in similar studies by other scholars, then it may mean that perhaps there's something wrong with your methodology and with your findings or with the kind of data analysis that you used. So the peer review process, and in general, I'd say that science is based on a communication between your own individual study or the study of your specific laboratory and the wider body of knowledge and body of findings that you have in that specific field. And that's how knowledge advances, really. It's not by individuals, but it is by connecting and comparing and putting together the small amount of knowledge that I was able to acquire, because I am only one person or only one laboratory. I can put it in communication with the other findings from other scholars, and that's how knowledge progresses, really, not by the one genius, which is, you know, a famous character, because even those who are geniuses, they may indeed have very disputable beliefs, and that obviously includes me. So that's why I think it's much more important to focus on the methodology and the peer review process and how that specific study relates to the wider body of knowledge and findings, rather than rely on one specific individual. And you may prefer one specific person in terms of teaching, for instance, because perhaps the way one person conveys knowledge may be more appealing to you, or you may find that a specific way of disseminating information may be more understandable to you. So then another question from Regulus is, what was the first topic you became interested enough in to do serious academic research for? Magic. As you can tell from this YouTube channel, my main interest and what I'm most interested in is magic and how it relates to different philosophies and different religious practices and different religious beliefs. But my core interest is really magic and what it is, and you know, the way people have conceptualized magic. And you may ask, why is magic so fascinating to you? Because to me, magic is a way whereby human beings can access and try and interact with what lies beyond. And it's also fascinating to me how magic has been interpreted differently across history. Like, in some cases, you have this idea that magic is a tool to affirm your individual power over the circumstances. But in other cases, you have the idea that magic is just the natural and unavoidable result of your spiritual development, like you have in yoga. Or in other cases, you may have the concept and the idea that magic results from being in a state of connectedness with everything that surrounds you. So I guess I'm just fascinating because magic is a way to challenge the extent of our agency as human beings. And not only in terms of what we can do, but perhaps most importantly to me, the extent of what we can experience. How much can we experience? Can we only experience with our bodies, or there are other ways of experiencing the world and navigate our lives? So that is very fascinating to me. So I say that magic has always been my core interest, but obviously that has been decleansed in many different ways in my academic journey. So you know that I have studied shamanism for my PhD, and the vernacular healing tradition in Italy, folk witchcraft, paganism. And now I'm studying, I'm working on a paper on spiritism, and I will also do further study on Satanism. And these are all located in Italy, because when you do academic research, you have to be very specific, especially if you do anthropological research on the contemporary world. You cannot just do Satanism. You have to be specific on, one tradition in a one specific place. Otherwise, when things are too generic, they just end up meaning nothing. So it's important to for the academic research to provide accurate information, and so you need to be very narrow in your inquiry to get accurate information. Then, how much time does it take to write your video scripts and record your videos? So it takes a lot of time. The bare minimum is 2 days if I already have the research done on a specific topic, and that is often the case, especially during semester when I'm teaching. I try to use material from my lectures to turn them into videos, but the bare minimum is 2 days when I already have the research done, because I have to write a script, and that takes, it depends, but usually 4 or 5 hours. And then I have to film the video, and that often, takes more than one take, because I'm not that good. And then there's the editing process, and then you have the uploading and adding all of the tags and all the things on YouTube, so that once you see the final version on Sunday of my videos, all of those stages need to have been completed. Now I'm quite happy to get help from one of my patrons, who is Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. And he's making the subtitles for my videos. So that's one thing that luckily I don't have to do, but I'm definitely glad that now there are also subtitles to my videos. Then when I also have to do research for videos, when for instance these are commissioned videos, or I'm trying to do a video on a topic that I'm not teaching on at the moment, or that I have never written a paper, like an academic paper on it, it may take up to a week. Because it obviously depends on how much background knowledge I have on the topic, and how much scholarship there is that I need to read and put together. But like for instance the video on Tantra and sex magic, and the video on hoodoo, those videos took almost a week to be made. So yeah, when I have to do dedicated research for a topic, it can take up to a week. So it takes a lot of time, guys. So I'm really happy that you acknowledge that, and do know that every time that you like or comment or share my videos, that really helps me grow and helps me keep making more videos for you guys. And if you can at all help, I always appreciate if you can send one-off donations or pledge to my Patreon. Then Regulus also asked whether I can explain what a peer-reviewed article is. And basically a peer-reviewed article is an article that has to go through the peer review process. And the way this works is that once you have conducted the study and you have written it down in an article form, you will send it to the editor of a specific journal, of an academic journal, and they will send it to typically two or one reviewer for evaluation. They will not know who you are, and you will never know who they are, luckily for them. And the outcome of the peer review process is that either your article gets rejected, or it gets accepted with amendments, or it gets accepted without amendments. So I have never heard of a person that I know that got accepted an article without amendments. So typically you do get to amend your work before resubmitting your article, because there are always going to be things that the reviewers will find in your study that need improvement. In some cases, you may need to conduct further research to have more data to prove one point or to argue in favor of a specific thesis. But in other cases, you may need to do more textual analysis or more textual research, or amend something in your methodology. It really depends. It depends on the kind of article, and it depends on the journal, and it depends on many things. But usually reviewers don't know who you are. It is all anonymous. And then once you get back from them, and hopefully the result is that your article is accepted with amendments, you apply them. You will have a certain amount of time to apply the amendments and do the further research in case that is needed, and then you resubmit the article. So as I was mentioning earlier, the peer review process puts your own single study in communication with the web of knowledge that is being produced within the academic community studying that specific subject matter. And in this way you can have confirmation that your methodology is good and that your knowledge is accurate. And of course, I'm not saying that the peer review process is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that it is a very good way of assessing the accuracy of a specific study. And then the last question is, do you have a sense of where research into esotericism and magic is headed in the near future? So I have already kind of mentioned on my Instagram that I was quite pleased when I went recently to the conference of the European Association for the Study of Religions that took place at the University of Pisa, because I could see that there were a few panels on esotericism and they were all well attended and received, and that, was not quite the case in the past. So my hope, it might be that I'm optimistic by nature, but my hope is that the field is developing further. We are getting more scholars in the field and there is more attention to this field. So I hope that in the future we will have more departments teaching and researching esoteric related topics at the university level, and that there will be more funding to conduct this kind of research, because at the moment that is quite scarce, as you can imagine, but we are trying to hold on and hope for a better future for this field, because as you guys also show me by following this channel and watching my videos, it's quite clear that there is an interest in the academic study of esotericism. Some of you may be interested in the academic study of magic because you want to improve your own magical practice, but it could also be the case that you are following this channel because you want to carry out this kind of research in the future. And I hope that if that is the case, you will be able to find a place. And since this is a video on my life and my daily life as a university lecturer plus YouTuber, I guess that one of the things that I like to say as a final note is that I hope to find a balance between work and life, because I think that so far it's been too unbalanced and I've been working too much. And that is because I'm really passionate about what I do, and I'm trying to, in a way, find a way to make this my job. I'm not talking just about YouTube, but of course working at the university. And for early career scholars, it's very difficult to find a stable place. I've been working very long hours and quite often I don't even take the weekends off. And yeah, I hope that in the future that will change, in the near future that will change, because I do need to find a balance and don't feel like if I stop, everything will fall apart, which is the way I feel often. But yeah, thank you for listening so far. I hope it was not boring, and I thank again Regulus for commissioning this video. I think that, yeah, perhaps you may have liked. I hope so. Let me know in the comments. What else can I say? That if you did like this video, you might want to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell so that you will never miss a new upload from me, and as always, stay tuned for all the academic fun. Bye for now.